Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Today we're going to deviate a little bit. We were going to discuss the second minicamp practice, but Brian Dable gave the boys a little bit of time, and they made it a very light practice. There was not too much to discuss there. There were a few things that we're going to start on really quickly before we get into the crux of what today's show is. And today's show is going to be the 5 things we can't wait to watch more of in Giants training camp. So this will be on the offensive side of the ball. Next week, we'll probably do something very similar on the defensive side of the ball. But we're going to discuss those things that we need to see, that we want to see, that will ultimately define the Giants season. But before we do that, Nick, I want to discuss with you a few things from the mini camp, though. Again, light practice, not too much to discuss on the practice end. But the starting and most important thing is Giants cornerback tryout, Trey Herndon, made a nice play today on a Tommy DeVito deflected pass. Again, taking to the house, the rest of the defense chasing him, cheering him on, and then chasing him and cheering him on. And then after it was announced that the Giants have signed Herndon to a deal, Trey Herndon might have a shot to play this season. Obviously, the Giants liked him enough to sign him, and he's made plays in both of the minicamp practices.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The Giants need help at cornerback. Trey Herndon has played, I think, 6 years for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Inside and outside guy, has over 1,500 snaps, both inside and out. And the Giants might need an inside or an outside guy. So it's good to have that kind of versatility. And I'm glad that he's already making plays this early in camp.
Yep, I'm with you on that. They could use the versatility, they could use the experience, especially. I mean, I thought in my mind, there's been times over the past where the Giants have kind of just trotted into the season with inexperienced corners playing important roles. That happened with Trey Hawkins last year. It's happened in the past with Corey Ballantyne. It's happened with several corners the Giants have tried to, let's throw him into the fire, see how it works. I'd kind of rather get the experienced guy in there, someone who's played snaps in the NFL, has faced some of these wide receivers, has some scouting reports, has the lowdown on how to win in the NFL at the cornerback position instead of trying to learn on the fly. So I'm excited about that. Some interesting comments I thought from Art Stapleton. I don't know if you saw these, Nick. I wanted to discuss these with you about Evan Neal, how the Giants have kind of backed off on his recovery from ankle surgery. And, what Art said was, we don't have any real information on this injury, but if it lingers in a training camp, he thinks that we're going to eventually see Jermaine Eluemunor move back to right tackle and then have Aaron Stinney step up and play at left guard. So he says they're not there yet. The Giants, obviously, this is not their plan. They've still been playing Eluemunor at guard. But he's like, let's give it 6 weeks until we get to camp, because in his mind, Art's mind, Eluemunor's ability to bounce outside from left guard or inside from left guard to the outside will be no issue for him, given his experience in the NFL. And he said Stinney has starts at left guard in the league. So he thinks he will be the natural plan, obviously, with Ezeudu practicing at right tackle there. And a little bit of a report on this, Nick, before we get into your thoughts on that. According to the Daily News, Evan Neal is just simply following the rehab recommendations of the surgeon who operated on his fractured left foot late last season. He says the number 7 overall pick's distance from the team during practice has recently stood out, whatever that means. Why it's a must to continue monitoring this key player, and that was from the Daily News. So just some interesting insight on the Evan Neal situation. I feel like we've been kind of left in the dark there. Do you have any thoughts on any of that?
I do. It seems like the Giants might be done with Josh Ezeudu inside, and they really just want to put him at guard, because why else would you have him operate in that area? Look, you say Jermaine Eluemunor, he can play left guard or right tackle, and he can alternate between the two, and it's no problem or no issue. I guess you can also weigh in the fact that they may feel comfortable that Evan Neal will be there in training camp, and this is just a contingency plan. But it does seem like to me the Josh Ezeudu inside experiment, after they added 3 potential 4, if you want to include Schlottman, interior offensive linemen, that they prefer him to just be the swing tackle, and they hope that he can seize that as a right tackle now, whereas last year was left tackle and it was left guard. So this guy's just been bounced around a bunch at this point.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I have 2 things I want to hone in on here. The first is Ezeudu, since you mentioned it. I felt like, given his skill set and what we saw in his rookie season before all the injuries, he really was a better fit inside as a guard. But he obviously has movement skills. He obviously has pop on contact. These are 2 things that could theoretically make him a good right tackle, a good swing tackle. What I'm concerned with is the issues we saw as a rookie in pass protection, and then obviously last season before the injury at left tackle, which is kind of not his fault, thrown into the fire. Maybe the hope is you get training camp, you get mini camp to work at tackle, you improve. But to me, that's more of just like wishful thinking, Nick, because we've seen too many times in the NFL these reps not be worth as much as people claim them to be or as much as people assume them to be. These practice reps, these minicamp reps, even these training camp reps. It's not a developmental league. Offensive linemen really develop on their own or through game experience. And so I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be, Nick, if he is the swing tackle. I'm curious why they've moved him off the guard plan. I think a lot of it has to do with the additions of John Runyon and Jermaine Eluemunor, and that's fine. Maybe they're looking to find a home for him and they feel like it's too crowded at guard and it's not as crowded as a tackle, because that's true. It is not as crowded at tackle. But I'm concerned with this plan because I don't necessarily know if I believe Josh Ezeudu can be a swing tackle for them and can be confidently put into games and pass protect. And that's still the most important job of either tackle, right or left. So that concerns me to start. It is what it is. I trust the coaches. They obviously see something. And again, maybe it has to do with the depth at the inside interior position. On the other front, tackle, I do feel confident Eluemunor could just step right in and play right tackle if Neal's injury lingers and if he can't play in camp. And then it's looking like, oh, week 1, Neal might be on the PUP list, something like that, which all just speculation at this point. But say it happens, Nick. But the one thing the Giants would be losing in that scenario is something they've preached as being important, and we know is important, which is the continuity and the chemistry on the offensive line. Because now you're taking a guy who was playing in the left guard position. He's playing next to Andrew Thomas and John Michael Schmitz. And now he's playing all the way out on the edge at right tackle next to Runyon. It's just a different scenario there, and it's a different group and a different chemistry. You obviously move Stinney then inside the guard at that point because, again, we're not assuming Ezeudu would be in the mix for that. So it's interesting, man. I just hope that it all kind of works itself out with Neal just being ready for camp, right? and then we don't have to worry about it as much.
Well, dude, now that the Giants also have a realistic plan where you could put Jermaine Eluemunor in there and it's not Josh Ezeudu. Josh Ezeudu is going to be the swing one. So you have Eluemunor in place. But if Evan Neal is late to camp, do the Giants say we're just going to rock with Eluemunor, or will they just go with Evan Neal when he is healthy? I'd imagine they would go with Evan Neal, but then Evan Neal is getting even a slower start at that point at a position that he struggled to adapt to at right tackle. And if we get a couple weeks into the season, Dan, and Evan Neal, he's still getting beat around the edge, that lack of confidence, like how long will it take until the Giants are like, we got to try this guy out inside and just put Eluemunor? Like, there's a lot of different scenarios that can play out.
Right. And that's it's like, I'm not sure that the plan even is that. I think the plan, I'm hoping that's the plan, right? Because I feel more confident with a scenario where it's like Eluemunor at right tackle. And even if it's not Neal at left guard, if they're just done with Neal and they put Stinney in there, fine. I still feel better about that than the idea of, oh, if Neal's struggling or hurt or whatever, let's put Ezeudu out there at right tackle. That doesn't inspire any kind of confidence in me whatsoever. I want to have hope that Ezeudu can develop as a pass protector on the outside as a tackle, but that's just like wishful thinking. It's like saying all these other things. You know, it's like saying, oh, Azeez Ojulari is going to have a breakout year. Well, I want to believe he can, but and the role suggests that maybe he can, but because he's going to have, not be on the field as much. But again, it's wishful thinking at this point because we haven't really seen it, honestly. So yeah, man, it's interesting what's going on on the offensive line. It seems like, why can't we have a team like the Eagles where there's no questions about the offensive line? They're just trotting it out there. You don't even have to talk about it. It's going to be top 5 one day. Hopefully the Giants can get to that point, Nick.
The Giants have drafted to suggest that they should be at that point. 2 top 10 picks at tackle. Not a lot of teams have 2 top 10 picks invested into both of their tackle positions. The Giants do, and here we are still. At least Andrew Thomas was a massive hit.
Yeah, you're right. And they hit one at least, and hopefully this will be it. We should come out of this year a minimum of 2. One of Evan Neal or JMS needs to hit this year, or we're going to start to look at this regime in a different way. And that's just fair. That's just how it goes. JMS, yeah, I've said before, you need 3 years to truly evaluate a rookie. I do not agree with that on the interior offensive line, especially with a top 55 pick at center. You can't be investing those kind of picks, and he can't be a bottom half center. It's just not a position, in my opinion, where you can do it at. It's an interesting pick when you make it. When you go top 55 at that position, in my opinion, it has to hit pretty early because it's not a position that teams usually invest in that early, and you should be getting a really good talent at that spot that can get involved and be a good, productive, above average player as early as year 2. So that's my expectation, at least for JMS. Neal, we might just be done on, obviously, Nick. I think we're willing to accept that at this point. He may be a bust. We're not saying he is, but that's at least worth considering at this point.
But stability on the offensive line is crucial because what was the best year of Will Hernandez's career with the New York Giants?
It was the
It was
first year.
his
Yeah.
rookie season, right? And we were actually like, oh, look, we got a guy. It
Yeah, he
wasn't
looked
maybe
good.
as great as we would have hoped, but we were optimistic. And then it was just downhill after that because the entire offensive line was just, it was not a stable unit at all. I think bringing in Runyon and Eluemunor at least helps stabilize, and even Stinney to some degree helps stabilize all those other positions, and that can hopefully unlock John Michael Schmitz's skill set.
Yep, I agree with that, by the way. That's why the continuity factor is so important that we were discussing earlier. If you can keep Eluemunor at left guard and Runyon at right guard and lock them in, and Neal is just playing well, then you may have a better chance of seeing the breakout from John Michael Schmitz, which is also why, Nick, I'm not going to be surprised, and I know fans are going to be pissed, if Neal takes some time or he's injured or he's not playing well, if they just put Ezeudu at right tackle with the idea of let's keep Eluemunor and Runyon locked into those guard spots to make things really good on the interior there, right? Like you have an interior of JMS, Runyon, Eluemunor, and they're working together, they're playing together all the time, not a lot of movement inside, the same guys. So it won't surprise me if they sacrifice a little bit maybe at right tackle for that, but still doesn't make me feel all that comfortable knowing Josh Ezeudu will be pass protecting on the right side. But it is what it is. Let's hope Evan Neal can just do this thing. All right. Couple other things, and then we'll get to what we were discussing today. The first one, kind of weird, Daniel Bellinger update. I didn't love to hear, there's some kind of, we didn't hear much about it. Bellinger spoke yesterday, and he's like, oh, no, I'm just giving reps, Then we heard today, finally, Dable's like, yeah, Bellinger, this is all he said, had something, quote unquote, happen a few weeks ago, and they're being cautious with him. So we don't know much on that front. Obviously, we're big fans of Bellinger on this show. His tape speaks for itself. You can go watch it. He's one of those players, we talk about him all the time. A handful of these players who are better on film than most fans assume, who don't maybe have the time or the, I guess the time or the resources to watch the tape. So I'm hoping he's all right, but obviously we don't know much on this, and it was kind of cryptic.
Yeah, I mean, this is somebody too, man, with Daniel Bellinger. And I know his ADOT isn't huge, but he caught 87% of the passes thrown his way in his first two seasons. I think he had one in his first year of 2022 that he did not secure. So this is somebody who's pretty damn sure-handed. And now that Waller's not there, his presence is that much more important. Still, I do appreciate the depth that Joe Shane brought in, because even if something is wrong with Daniel Bellinger, I'm still a little bit more comfortable with this tight ends room's depth, because Jack Stoll and Chris Manhurst can at least block. And then maybe we could see Theo Johnson's potential get unlocked to some degree, but we need Daniel Bellinger there. He is going to be the 1A tight end on this team.
He's a must-have for this season now that Waller is retired, as far as I'm concerned, because you can't just I don't really think you can fully trust a rookie out there in Theo Johnson. And yeah, you could turn to the guys you mentioned, Nick, but if you're turning to those guys you mentioned, in my opinion, you've now become a pure 11 and 10 personnel kind of team. And that's all you are. And you're mostly in 11 at that point, because yeah, you can throw both of those guys out there for 12 personnel, those two blockers, but you're really limiting your offense, in my opinion, if two of those guys are on the field at the same time. From an explosive standpoint, from a spacing standpoint, it's just not a good sign. No offense is going to be anywhere near the top 10. No offense to these guys. They're good blocker types. But if those two are on the field at once, I don't believe in an offense personally. But unless, you could get if it's a 49ers type thing, but the Giants don't have that kind of run game. So, we're going to have Daniel Bellinger be healthy. But I think they're just being cautious in the sense of it's fine. It's minicamp. Let's not go crazy. It's partially why they didn't have such a hard second minicamp practice day, Nick. I think just let's get to training camp healthy. You heard Brian Dable mention it multiple times. I think everyone should be ready for camp. Let's just get to camp healthy, right? This stuff right now is really not all that important. We're still months away from what really matters, the regular season game. So I think that's the key there. One more thing, Nick, before we get to our discussion today. Wan'Dale Robinson mentioned that he's done some GPS numbers this offseason, and he's hit some numbers on the GPS tracking that he's never hit before in his life from a speed standpoint. So I think this kind of goes into what we were discussing on yesterday's show. Wan'Dale Robinson looks like he has extra juice, looks like he has extra burst, and it's showing up, man. And I'm so excited about this wide receiver core, man.
Same here. And Brian Dable also threw direct shots at Wan'Dale Robinson. When Wan'Dale Robinson stepped up to the podium, Brian Dable said, do you need a stool or something? You need a little bit of elevation. And then Robinson just couldn't say anything. He just sat there dumbfounded and was like, you drafted me. You drafted me.
Not the biggest receiver, but definitely one of the most explosive on the roster. And that takes us to the 5 things we can't wait to watch on the offensive side of the ball in Giants training camp in a few weeks or months from now. And the first one is Wan'Dale Robinson at full speed. with a full understanding of the offense. I think those are the two keys here. Yeah, he might have been at full speed his rookie season, but he didn't really have a full understanding of the offense. This has been described as a difficult offense to pick up. There is option routes for the wide receivers. There needs to be a good rapport going on with the receiver and the quarterback. We kind of saw it start to flash in that Lions game his rookie year. And of course, knowing the Giants' luck, 100-yard game from Wan'Dale, and he tears his ACL in that same game. Now, full year removed from the ACL, doing the best numbers he's ever done in his career from a GPS standpoint. I'm excited to see how he can operate in this offense. I know some people, Nick, believe, he's not going to see that many snaps because they'll use neighbors in the slot, or, they'll just have 12 personnel and he won't be able to get on the field. I'm not of that belief. I think they're going to find ways to get him on the field, sometimes in motion into the backfield. Just knowing this offense and how much motion they use, I don't think they can go without keeping Wan'Dale on the field, especially if he's as explosive as he's looked so far.
Especially with his past as a running back and the New York Giants' current running back room, and the fact that we've seen Brian Daboll use Wan'Dale Robinson in the running back position. Now, we haven't seen gigantic plays like he's been used on jet sweeps and end arounds, and those have been good. I think there were a couple times where he was aligned in the backfield. I can't remember what year it was or which game, but he made a really dumb choice, and the Giants lost like 8 yards, and then we're probably not going to see him back there again. But I could see them putting him back now that he's a little bit more experienced and more well-versed in the offense, and because I think he would actually be pretty damn effective in that role if used judiciously.
I like that idea too, and I think it's something to consider. Obviously, they have two players on this roster now, Nick, who can who have at least at some point done in their past in college, or can kind of play both wide receiver and running back. Which is interesting. You have what we talk all along. We've talked about this for 2 years. We have full faith in Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka's ability to create an offense, to create play designs, to create play structure, and to call the right plays at the right time with the right route combinations and things of that nature to create offense. Now we need the players to do their job, but now they have two unique offensive pieces. I'm excited to see how creative they can get with Wan'Dale at full speed.
So with Wan'Dale too, in college, his top GPS number in his senior season was 21.9, or his last season, I should say, 21.9 miles per hour.
Wow.
Which is freaking fast. Now, that was according to the University of Kentucky. Last year with the Giants and his rookie season, I think his top speed was 20.6. And I think it was last year over his rookie season even. So we're looking, if he's talking about, hey, I'm reaching peak numbers, top numbers, well into the 21 mile per hour, maybe even the 22 mile per hour range. Now, will that translate, though, to actual football? As we saw last year, Jalen Hyatt, I think, was cracking well into the 23 mile per hour. That's not something that you typically see ever actual playing football. Like Tyreek Hill doesn't even really get that high. He's usually around a 21.9, 22.
And that's interesting, too, because he's probably the fastest player in the NFL, GPS-wise, I would say. Obviously, timed 40-yard dash, not something that we're as concerned with, but the GPS is important. All right, let's get to the second thing we're most excited to watch in training camp on the offense side of the ball. And we can't wait to watch how fast Malik Neighbors can develop his rapport with Daniel Jones. Obviously, we discussed it, Nick, yesterday, but Daniel Jones is progressing fast in his return from the ACL. And I think we're going to see, and this is best case scenario, I think we're going to see him fully ready, honestly, for day one of training camp. I'm maybe a little too optimistic on this, but I have just based on everything I've seen from him moving around and what Brian Daboll said, and his comments about Drew Lock yesterday, about getting reps now because you're not going to get them, when we get to training camp. I think we're going to see it right away, and that's the best case scenario by far for the Giants because Daniel Jones will be the starter for week one. It's almost unquestioned at this point, and unless he suffers a setback with the injury. And so I need him to get that rapport down with Malik Neighbors. I need them to understand the timing, every route, where the ball placement needs to be, where it should be. And on Neighbors' front, I need him to understand what kind of quarterback he's getting thrown the football to. How does he throw a deep ball? How does he throw it to me when I'm on the vertical plane, when I'm making my in cuts, my out cuts, things of that nature? So I'm very excited to see them start to develop that rapport.
On the horizontal plane too, we neglect the horizontal plane. Dan, you're a big vertical plane guy. We need to start acknowledging the horizontal plane because honestly, that's the plane that Daniel Jones kind of struggles with on those deep horizontal crosses. He does tend to put the football a little bit behind on certain routes, which we've discussed over the years. But I'm right there with you. You need to have that rapport. Daniel Jones, Malik Neighbors. And even if they don't develop that rapport, you want to maximize rapport, no doubt. But even if they don't develop it, Malik Neighbors is so talented that he's not going to be a wasted asset on this offense, because he is the type of player similar to Odell Beckham Jr. that can take a slant to the house, that can hit huge home runs in quick game, right? Giants can run quick game offense, typically 5-yard gains, 6-yard gains, set up in a 2nd and 4 type of plays on first down. He can turn those into touchdowns. And the Giants have not had a football player like that in quite some time. Like Evan Ingram was one that we thought could be that. And I think he is that for a tight end, was completely misused for much of his time here in New York. And also he had just the worst dropsies that just, oh God, it's so frustrating thinking about which year was that? Was it 2020?
They should have beat the Eagles was the worst, but
oh man, just devastating.
In Philly. And he dropped that pass. And it's crazy too, because you watch him now and it's almost like he's like learned a completely different way to catch the football. Maybe I don't want to get into too much of this, but is it the coaching? Is it individual coaching there? Because the way he catches the football now, it looks entirely different than the way you remember the chop he used to have with the Giants. He doesn't have that anymore.
The Gator chop, baby.
Gator chop. I don't know why that was going on for so long in his career with the Giants, and he was able to fix it with the Jaguars. But it's another story for another day, Nick, and we don't have to worry about that one anymore. But the third one for us of 5 things we're most excited to watch on the offensive side of the ball is if Theo Johnson can, 1, earn first-team reps, and 2, produce in practice. And why am I excited to see this? Because I still am of the belief that there's a non-zero chance he could be a contributor right away for the Giants in year 1, and a bigger contributor, I think, because 1, his quarterback play was god-awful at Penn State, just god-awful. And 2, he wasn't really focused or featured on in that offense at Penn State. The tight end wasn't a big part of that offense. Not a lot of first reads to Theo Johnson. And, if he could start to earn those first team reps in practice with the Giants and start to get on the field with the first team offense and Daniel Jones, and then start to produce, play here, play there, we might see him earlier this season. And I think, honestly, best ceiling case scenario for the Giants involves Theo Johnson making an impact in year 1. I don't know if there's a ceiling for this team that doesn't involve either of those day 3 picks producing and playing in year 1.
I'm right there with Theo Johnson. I'll say this too, just to bring it to the defense, and we'll have another podcast similar to this detailing what we want to see defensively. I want to see Theo Johnson and Tyler Nubin against each other. I want to see Tyler Nubin against Daniel Bellinger. I want to see, and I know that we're not going to see as much man coverage now, but typically 2.5 seconds into a play, it just ends up turning into man coverage. I want to see some of these safeties against these tight ends, and I want to see some of these tight ends win those one-on-one matchups, because these tight ends are going to have one-on-one matchups a lot, because you have Malik Neighbors, you have Jalen Hyatt's speed, who is going to create space. That's what every offense is trying to do, right? Create space. And I think if you have these one-on-one matchups with a 6'6", 260-pound guy with that type of athletic ability, I want to see him actually moss some of these dudes. So let's see that, Theo Johnson.
I'm with you on that. It'll be fun to watch. I think you're right about that call too, by the way, Nick, where he could be, last year we had and we're going both sides of the ball here, but last year we had Jason Pinnock have just phenomenal plays in practice. Stab interception. I think Theo could be one of those dudes this year. That's one of the stars of training camp that makes those splash type plays that get the videos going, the Giants social media content rolling, and everybody excited about it on Twitter and social media. So another guy who could be in that mix, and this is number 4 for us on our 5 things we can't wait to watch in Giants training camp on the offense side of the ball. Number 4 for us, it's if Tyrone Tracy can, 1, earn first team reps, and 2, produce in practice. And let me say this, Nick, we saw some reports. I didn't get to this earlier in our minicamp review, but I saw this, I believe, from Art Stapleton earlier today. Tracy's starting to get first team reps as of yesterday's minicamp practice. He was getting a lot of first team reps. I did not expect that to happen so fast. Obviously, training camp will be a different story, right? There's more live pads, that type of stuff. There might have joint practices, and then obviously the preseason. And why do I mean it's a different story? Because we have to see if he's going to pass protect and if he can pick up the pass protection stuff fast. And obviously, he's got to get on the same page with Daniel Jones when it comes to the pass protection, because if not, they won't put him on the field. But I'm excited to see if he can earn first team reps and produce in practice, because I don't want to take anything away from Devin Singletary. He's a great runner, and he does the nuances of playing the running back position really, really well. He's good at making people miss in a phone booth, and he's good at processing. But from a pure raw physical standpoint, and running back of all the skill positions is by far the most physical tools based. There's no one on this roster at the running back position who's as big as has the size speed combination of Tyrone Tracy and the ability to create yards after contact at his level and force missed tackles at his level.
Do you ever feel sluggish or out of focus? Are you stressed? Has your digestive system caused discomfort or flatulence like a certain co-host on this podcast during a live stream? If so, you should check out AG1. When I started drinking AG1 daily, I could feel a real difference in my daily health. I had more energy, I was better off at the gym, and I could focus on my work in a much more efficient manner. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. Not only did I replace my multivitamin with AG1, but I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. I recommend AG1 to all my family and friends because AG1 has a team of doctors and scientists that formulate around the latest science and maintains high quality standards within the industry. Even my friends have started drinking AG1, and they always tell me how energetic they feel and how it's helped them out at the gym, and also it's helped them manage their stress levels. That's why we're happy to have AG1 as our partner. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to drinkag1.com/banter. That's drinkag1.com/banter to check it out. Our mental and physical well-being is of the utmost importance. Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all need to take that very seriously. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Big Blue Banter podcast. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New York, New Jersey, Arizona, if you will, or hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/banter to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/banter. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment. And before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, include EE System.
I hope that the New York Giants, when they play Washington and they play Dallas,
Okay.
Washington's number one linebacker right now, Bobby Wagner. Dallas's number one linebacker, Eric Kendricks. Those guys are like our age. I want to see Tyrone Tracy on third down put in there and isolated against those players in man coverage. I'm sure that the defensive coordinators, Dan Quinn being the head coach, and then Mike Zimmer will have contingencies in place, but forced contingencies, because then that will allocate eyes away from Theo Johnson and then obviously Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. Just force that, because these are true receiving assets, Dan, coming out of the backfield. And within this division, there are linebackers to be exploited from an athletic standpoint. So that's one thing I want to see when the season rolls around. But positive development and that drumbeat is something that we need to see start in training camp.
That's such a good call by you, Nick, because that's coaching right there. That's play design. That's matchups, taking advantage of them. And we have full faith and confidence Brian Daboll can do that. And that leads us to the fifth point for us. Our fifth thing we can't wait to watch on the offense side of the ball, Giants training camp, and it's play designs and play calls now that Brian Daboll is calling the plays. I think at this point, we're all but locked in. We heard Mike Kafka speak today at the second minicamp practice and essentially, confirm it's looking very likely that Brian Daboll will be calling the plays this year. And I think Brian Daboll probably feels a little bit of the pressure. He needs to get a winning season in, so he wants to put his stamp on it. I'm excited to see him call plays. I mean, some of these play designs, obviously, they've already been Daboll play designs, but now he's going to have the opportunity to make the decision on what to call and when. And that just excites me, man, because I think he's a great offensive mind. I think it's proven he's an offensive genius at this point. To some, maybe that's not proven, but that's my I should say opinion on it, Nick. Yeah. And I loved how he called that offense in Buffalo. Was it a little too pass heavy? Maybe, sure, I can give you that, but you're not going to find I'm just in on pass heavy play calling. Like, to me, passing is the cheat code in the NFL. You should be passing a lot more than you're running. You should be passing to open up the run game. I like runs on second and third down. I don't like runs on first down, and I don't like runs on second and long. So essentially, pass to get a 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5. Then I like a run. I'll take a run there. But, if you want to go pass heavy on first downs and 2nd and long, God bless you. That's what I think is the best way to do it. And I think Brian Dable is going to do that for us. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, same here. It's something that's going to be a little bit different. We're going to see Mike Kafka possibly in a more reserved role. Hopefully this does not affect Brian Dable's overall management of the team at this point. But as we've mentioned on previous podcasts, the Giants assembled a gigantic staff where they had people up in the booth who can help Brian Dable manage while also calling the plays. So we'll see if he can unlock whatever magic he had with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, a different personnel right now, obviously, but it's something that I think you nailed in the sense that he's probably feeling the heat.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point though by you, Nick, that we shouldn't ignore, and we could wrap up on that, but look, as excited as we may be for Brian Dable to put his stamp on this offense, his full stamp, we have to keep in mind that there have been some issues over the last 2 years when it comes to management, in-game management and coaching from him, both from a time standpoint, timeouts, end of half type stuff like that, some 4th down decisions, things that I would rather him be locked in on. But overall, if the offense is functioning at the highest level because he's calling the plays, I still think that's going to be the better overall thing for the Giants, because those decisions do matter in games, but they don't matter as much as can this offense move the freaking football and can they score points?
Correct. Now, if I'm not mistaken, when all of the negativity surrounding Brian Dable was coming out last season, weren't there some reports, I'm not sure if they were verified, that Brian Dable was basically in Mike Kafka's ass a lot, basically?
There were reports about that.
Yeah, so like this isn't somebody who was like passively sitting back, just being like, Mike Kafka has it. Like he was like,
he was in Wink Martindale's ass, despite being an offensive guy.
I know, man. So like, that's the kind of guy he is. Now it's going to be on him. So maybe that will help provide clarity, because he's not going through a medium for what he wants his team to do. But still, to the previous point, we need him to also manage the team because that's his overall job.
And if I were Nick Filato right now, I would have given one of these. I can't even do it.
Wait, what do I do?
One of these when I in this scenario, or Nick in this scenario, said Brian Dable was in his ass.
Oh, he was in that ass, bro.
He was in that ass, Larry.
Get
in that ass, Larry. You know that from
yeah.
Curb?
Get in that
ass, Larry. Yeah. Open that thing up. Get in that ass. Get in that ass. That was from sorry for the
JB Smoove is one of the best
incredible episode of Curb when Larry's in the doctor's office and the skinhead calls him an effing Jew, and he's like Leon's like, he screams at him, say, "You effing Jew," and Leon's like, what'd you do, Larry? And he's like, "I slunk out of there." He says, "You slunk?" "Yeah, I slunk out of there." Slunk. I love that, how Larry describes it. That's exactly what he would have done. Like, he just slunks out of there. And Leon's like, "No, you got to get in that ass, Larry." So apologize for those.
Larry is a big slunker, though.
He's a big slunk.
He'll slunk out of those situations, but he'll also like slunk out of a party. He wants to,
there's plenty of slunking when it comes to Larry David. And JB Smoove was perfect. Leon was his perfect counterpart for that show, and really took that show to the next level during their time. Though I didn't love the last season as much as others did. I'm just going to start by saying that.
Wait, the new season that just came out? Season, I haven't seen it yet.
A lot of people loved it. I still think it was missing something from the prime Curb. The prime Curb is like, that the first season of Leon into like the third season of Leon, I believe, right? Maybe one or two past the Seinfeld season, but still great. It's still Curb.
Give me a month. I'm going to watch it, and
you need to
come back to you. We'll report back on the show. If
okay. Yeah, no, nobody wants to hear about this. No. They're right. This is almost as bad as me talking about golf, which I haven't done, by the way, in like 6 episodes. So keep that in mind for the haters out there. Anyway, this is it for the Big Blue Banter podcast. Keep it locked and loaded. We're going to fill the gap of void time for the Giants now that minicamp is over. We're not going to have any actual Giants stuff that they're not going to be doing, I should say, until training camp. But there is definitely content that we can hit and we will hit. We're going to do this for the defense side of the ball as well, coming up among other things. So have a great rest of your week and keep it locked and loaded, because we will be back and talking to you pretty damn soon.